Hi guys, thank you for having me. My name's Jen Ross. I work with Soto Sake. Today we'll do a little Sake 101, talk about a little bit about Soto as well. So I made these packets for you guys. It just has kind of like the sake basics. So we'll go over kind of what sake is, how the different expressions are, like what makes them different. And then obviously with the tasting too, it's always fun to kind of taste and see the different nuances in each of the different styles. So this is our junmai that we're starting with. This bottle right here. If you guys would like to taste while I talk, feel free. So a little bit about sake. So sake, it's actually a brewed beverage. Everybody calls it rice wine, but it's actually brewed more similar to beer. It's always made from rice. There are four main ingredients that go into sake brewing: rice, water, yeast, and this thing called koji. And koji is kind of like the enzyme or the mold that turns the starch in the rice into fermentable sugar. So kind of like what malt is to beer. All sake across the board is gluten-free, sulfite-free, tannin-free, vegan. It's a very pure alcoholic beverage. I know, how healthy do we want our booze to be, but when it comes to, like a very clean, pure alcoholic beverage, sake I think is number one. So what gives the sake the different styles is how much they polish the rice before they brew the sake. Okay, so the outside of all rice that we eat and brew sake with has fats and proteins that are delicious for cooking, but give harsh off flavors to sake. So they have to polish away the outer husk. And the idea is the more they polish the rice down, the more refined, delicate, clean, pretty the sake becomes. So I have this little, I always travel with rice, guys. So there's unpolished sake rice, like a medium or the middle tier polish, and then a daiginjo polish. But just so that you guys can see, because everybody always says, what do you mean polish the rice? So in the late 1930s, early 1940s, the milling machine was invented, and they do it by weight. So they pour a certain amount of rice in. There's a grinding stone on the bottom. It's kind of like a tornado effect. And when 30% of the weight is gone, 70% polish. When 40% of the weight is gone, 60%, and so on. So that's how they kind of measure the different grades. So the second page, sorry, some of them are double-sided and some of them have a second page, guys. When you see the percentages in each level of polish on this page, that's how much of the rice remains for the brewer to work with. And when you see the word junmai or the other, thank you so much, Sam, the other family, so there's two families that the brewer is going to decide that they're going to make. The first one is junmai. Junmai in Japanese loosely means pure rice or pure rice brew. When you see that word, all it's telling you is that the sake is brewed with the main four ingredients that I just shared with you guys: rice, water, yeast, and koji. When you don't see the word junmai on a sake bottle, you can assume that the optional fifth ingredient has been added. So the fifth optional ingredient for the brewers to work with is brewer's alcohol. It's a distilled spirit from rice or sugarcane usually, and they can add a little bit in to actually lighten the body and change the aromatics of the sake. It doesn't make the ABV higher. They can't add as much as they want. It's a very controlled amount by law, and it's just literally to make a different style. So even the most savvy sake drinker, I think, like, it's really, really hard to tell, like in a blind taste test, like this is junmai, this is honjozo. But after doing this for a long time, I think that personally, junmais tend to be like a little bit more pronounced and bold with their flavors. Honjozos are going to be like very mellow, like easy drinking, well-rounded stylistically. But again, not a quality difference, just two different styles of sake. So after they decide which style they're going to make, then they decide about polishing the rice. So junmais and honjozos without the word ginjo or daiginjo attached to it is generally a 70% polish. 30% has been milled away, 70% is left for the brewer to work with. They haven't polished the rice down that much. So those styles of sake, like the one that you're tasting, are usually going to be like your more traditional sake flavors: earthy, umami-driven flavors, sometimes nutty, mushroomy, like more rustic. Then they polish the rice down to the middle tier or the middle level of polish. 60% polish is telling you that it's a ginjo sake. To be labeled ginjo, it has to be polished to 60% or smaller of its original size. Soto sake, we don't have a ginjo. We have two different daiginjo that we're going to taste. So while we're talking about it, let me go ahead and pour some daiginjo for you guys. Okay. And then I'll tell you guys about the three Sotos as well and where they're from. So we're jumping straight to daiginjo polish. There we go, where they polish the rice down the most. To be labeled daiginjo, they have to polish it down to 50% or smaller of its original size. And junmai ginjos, the middle tier, are usually going to be like your more fruity, aromatic, juicy, like expressive sakes. Daiginjos, they're polishing the rice down so small that they get very like clean, light, delicate. Ethereal is a word that they like to use. Certainly still like very complex, but like you really do have to spend more time like getting to know it. You know what I mean? Because they're very clean and light. Ah, thank you. Okay. There we go. So just to talk a little bit about the two Soto that you guys are tasting, and it's fun too because you're not only are you tasting like a Junmai versus Junmai Daiginjo, they're both brewed in the same region of Japan. So all three of our sake come from northern Japan. These two from Niigata Prefecture, this one from Yamagata. So northern Japan, snow country, they're known for getting around 30 feet of snow on average per year. The snow melt is the water source that the brewers use to brew the sake in that region. So it keeps it very like clean, fresh, crisp, like easy drinking is the name of the game for the style from up there. So that's like the nice thing I think about Soto is like it's so versatile. You know, it's like a new sake drinker can enjoy it, an experienced sake drinker can enjoy it, because sakes can go from this style to also like very expressive, like we were talking about, or very funky, very fruity, also delicious. Totally just preference on what people like to drink. But these guys just so versatile with any type of food. They want it to be like with sake, everything's always very poetic. So like snow melting on your palate is, you know, what they like to say. The Daiginjo, they're using the same sake rice, but two different yeasts. So much lower aromatics in the Junmai, if you guys noticed, and then much bigger aromatics in the Junmai Daiginjo. Junmai Daiginjo always reminds me kind of coconut water. Like that's the characteristic I personally get from it. Really refreshing.
Can you get a couple of serves?
So observes, like what do you, what, how to serve it? Like the amount or
different ways to serve it. Chill, hot,
temperature?
Yeah.
Totally preference. So let me back up. Actually, most brewers in Japan do intend for you to enjoy the sake chilled, white wine chilled to room temp. They do warm sake in certain parts of Japan. I mean, it snows 6 months out of the year in northern Japan. So you can warm sake. You can warm any sake and it's not going to hurt you, or it's not, you know, but we do encourage warming less polished styles because it kind of welcomes the heat better. When you warm a Daiginjo, they're so delicate, it kind of cooks the nuances or the flavors off of it. So again, you can warm it. If people want to spend money and warm that Daiginjo, by all means, no right or wrong, but warming like less polished styles, it just like kind of opens up like that earthiness, makes it a little sweeter. They're a little bit more hearty, you know, like that kind of thing. And that kind of just also to debunk the myth of like that you warm sake because it's cheap, you know? So in the US, we started getting sake imported after World War II. There were rice shortages. They were adding copious amounts of brewer's alcohol. So it was even a lower grade of alcohol or sake called futsushu, which they still do make in Japan, but it wasn't, but nowadays we're not doing that. We have the best sake imported into the US. Sake brewed in the US, actually, you can't add any brewer's alcohol. So all domestic sake is Junmai. There's no Honjozo brewed here. So with the, you know, the big like large boxes you see in Japanese restaurants, it's actually just Junmai sake brewed in California. So that's why it's less expensive, but not because it's, so exactly, yes. So it's like, it's less expensive, but it's not poor quality per se. Like it's made just like traditional Japanese sake using Calrose rice. It just keeps the cost down, right? So it's very affordable. So that's why they warm it. So I just hate to say like, just like these guys, like we can talk about why Daiginjo is more expensive, but if you like to drink Junmai, that's what you like to drink. The reason Daiginjo is more expensive is because more labor is involved in producing that style of sake. It takes more raw materials to produce Daiginjo because you're polishing the rice down so small. It takes more time invested, slower, longer fermentation because the materials are so delicate. It takes about 7 to 8 hours to polish rice to 70% polish, and it takes 72 hours to polish rice to 50%. So it's just more time, you know, but it's just like tequila, like, you know, when I sold tequila a long, long time ago, people would come up in tastings and say, I'm only going to taste one. Give me the best one. Well, it's like, I can tell you why Añejo is more expensive, but if you like to drink Blanco, that's what you like to drink, you know? So that's what I like to say about sake is just each polish level imparts different flavor profile to the sake. And yeah, just all delicious for different reasons, depending on what you're eating, if you're eating all that great stuff, whatever temperature you like to enjoy sake at. When you open a bottle of sake, they're good open for easily 4 weeks. It doesn't oxidize like wine. They're very stable. So that's also something really nice to share with customers. It's just that you have time to enjoy a glass. You know, you don't have to drink it in a couple of days like you do with some wine. All right, so now let's try our limited edition. So this is one that we launched last year, guys. It's the first of a series that we're going to do, hopefully bringing a new one in each year, where we work with a new brewer, smaller brewer, that their sake isn't available in the US yet. So just kind of highlighting like some really small, cool brewers and things that they're doing. He is fifth generation of his family's brewery that's been around since the 1800s. He is also brewing a Junmai Daiginjo for us, brewed with an old school method called Kimoto, and using an heirloom rice called omachi. So Kimoto brewing method, what the special thing to know about that is, because it's old school, before they knew they could add lactic acid to the fermentation to kind of sterilize and stabilize the fermentation, it would happen naturally. So the fermentation is 2 weeks longer. And what that does is just gives the sake more richness. Like it just gives it more depth. Like I think a little bit more of, those umami driven flavors, that those traditional sake flavors mixed with the elegance of the Junmai Daiginjo polish. And then like the omachi rice gives it like this really juicy kind of grassy taste profile that's delicious. So there you go, Sam. Ah, thank you. So this one,
where is this brewery?
This brewery is in Yamagata, so just north of Niigata.
Okay.
Yes. So, and the only one tank was brewed in all of Japan, so only 506 packs were bottled. Only 3 states in the U.S. received this sake, and once it's gone forever. So that's going to be our thing. And then next year we'll do something with a new brewer, new style, totally different. So I hope you guys, I'm really stoked you guys get to try it, because it's not a lot of places. Yeah. What do you think? Good. I know.
Yeah, I really like that.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, it's so fun because I mean, even like tasting, so tasting two Junmai versus Junmai Daiginjo, but then tasting two Junmai Daiginjos, like completely different, right? So it's kind of like having like a Pinot Noir from California, New Zealand, and Oregon, like all Pinot Noir, but totally different. So that's also kind of fun with sake, to do that side by side stylistic tasting too.
Is the rice typically grown more in the south of Japan, or is it also grown?
Not so much in the north, actually. So more like central and south. And that's a really good question. There's currently.
Can you just do us a favor, since you have the mic and he doesn't? Can you repeat the question before answering it?
Oh, sure. Yes. So Wiley asked if the rice is typically grown more south or in northern Japan, or where the rice is grown. So usually central and south. Some rice strains are grown in the north, and those usually are used in the north. Like they don't get shipped all over the country. But there's certain rice strains that have been, they're hybrids, just like grapes with wine, and they're developed because they behave very, very well in sake fermentation. And those are usually grown in central Japan and get shipped different parts of the country for sake brewing. But there's currently about 80 to 100 strains of rice grown exclusively for sake brewing. No, you don't eat them. They don't taste very good. The difference is that they grow the grains larger in size, because they're going to polish part of it away, and they get the starch concentrated in the center, like the yolk of a hard-boiled egg, because they need that starch to turn to sugar, to turn to alcohol in the fermentation. So it isn't like, so that's a good question, kind of playing to like the terroir of sake, where because they ship the rice different places, that they say that the terroir of sake is more like the actual brewery and like the head brewer's skill and his brewing methods. Also, the water plays a huge role, because the water is so different in each region of Japan. Snow melt water versus like other breweries use, water that has like nice salinity that comes from the bay, different things like that. Water that goes over limestone and has great minerality versus, hard water versus soft water, like all play a role to the mouthfeel of the sake. But
yeah. Any other questions?
I have another question.
Sure.
The black one is the Junmai, right?
Yes.
And it had a little bit more of a lighter flavor than the Daiginjo.
Right.
And I was seeing with the pairings here, the Junmai is typically paired with older foods.
Right.
The Daiginjo is typically paired with more delicate foods. So it's kind of
Yeah.
like the inverse there. The
It
older
is.
taste is paired with the more delicate foods.
Yes.
Vice versa.
No, so great. I'm glad you brought that up too, because I love this just as a guide, and like it gives you great, like generally what to expect with each expression of sake. With Soto, it is a little bit backwards. Our Junmai is very light, which again too, I kind of like because it's so easy drinking. But generally Junmais are bolder, like just, this guy is very, very light. The alcohol is also lower in our Junmai than in our Junmai Daiginjo. So this is 14% ABV, this is 15.5. So I do see how this is more pronounced, which is counterintuitive to what I just taught you guys about Junmai and Junmai Daiginjo, but that has to do with the ABV and I think also the aromatics. So well, these are certainly suggestions and a good guide to follow, but also like play around with it because Junmai Daiginjos, even though generally they're on the lighter side, they're great with like steaks, you know, like it just really brings out like the fattiness and everything, and it doesn't, versus like this, which generally you would think maybe this you try with sushi, but I actually think this is a great sushi or sashimi sake. So no right or wrong. The nice thing about sake and food pairing, so sake has no tannins, very low in acidity compared to wine, also different in acidity. So sake doesn't have any malic or tartaric acid. It's all natural and lactic acid and the highest beverage in the planet in amino acids. And the amino acids just equal umami, which just back up the flavors of food. So sake will never fight with food. It shouldn't overpower dishes. It's always just going to enhance the flavors of the food, which is really nice. And I have this blog that I can share with Sam if you guys want it. It's just really interesting. This gentleman with a science background broke down the amino acid content of sake, and it was the most similar scientifically to tomatoes, cheese, and oysters. So sake and cheese pairing, super fun. Oysters like a no-brainer, but yeah, just it's sake with Italian food with pizza, like really, really delicious too. So if you guys get a bottle and try it home, it's really it's like shocking. It's shockingly good. Yeah, no, because everybody thinks sushi sake. You know, you never think to. So seriously, I highly encourage it.
Any last questions, comments, concerns, remarks?
Difference between soju and sake.
Great question. So sake is brewed and always. What's the difference between sake and soju? So sake is brewed and always made from rice. Soju is distilled and can be made from an abundance of different raw materials. So, you know, barley, sweet potato, shiso leaf, carrots, like rice, so many different things. Soju distilled in Korea, shochu distilled in Japan. Essentially also the same thing, just one, you know, just made in each country. Yeah. And shochu, usually they'll tell you what the raw material is that they'll make it from. But Korean soju, I'm not sure if they always tell you, you know, what the base material is. But yeah, distillation and the brewing are the biggest differences. Yeah. Yeah. No, good question. Everybody always asks.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Or a comment. So I don't really drink I don't drink liquor, but I love sake. And I've noticed that I like sake because I can drink almost as much as I want and I don't get a hangover.
Yes.
Why is there like really no hangover for me?
That a lot of people subscribe to that, and no, that makes me so happy. I mean, I also think that sake is like the clearest buzz if you just drink good sake all night. But again, I just think why is there less of a hangover and no hangover when you drink sake? So I mean, so the finished product of sake is 80% water, and just like we were talking about before, I mean, there's just no additives. It's all natural. I mean, it's purely like rice, water, yeast, no gluten, no tannin, no sulfites. It's vegan. It's, you know, it's very pure. So
sorry, I need to interrupt. That's a good point because we've been getting recently so many women
yes,
coming in here asking for wine with no sulfite.
yes,
It's like, I don't know if it's on TikTok right now or something, but that's like a recurring question.
they could try sake.
And so now we can recommend sake.
Absolutely.
If they want a good clean drink with no sulfite.
No sulfites. Yeah, okay. Absolutely. And the other thing too, I mean, not just for women, men should care about this too. That ask for it. So no, I mean, honestly, and it's interesting too, because there's like you saying that, it makes me so happy, because then you'll get people that are like, oh, I don't drink, it always gives me a terrible hangover. And it's like, well, where did you drink it or how did you drink it? Did you drink hot sake with a beer back with exactly. And it's like, well, it is very similar ABV to wine, even like a smidge higher ABV than wine. So if I was shooting my wine with a beer back with shots after, like I would feel like shit too, you know. But if you sip sake like wine and you enjoy it like a regular beverage, I do think it's the kindest to your body the next day, honestly. And it's no byproducts go to waste. It's very sustainable. So you know, they polish the rice. Everything that comes off of the outside of the rice is rice flour. It goes to farms for livestock feed, cracker companies, cookie companies. At the end of fermentation, all of the unfermented rice in the tanks, if it doesn't go into nigori sake, the cloudy sake, then it gets dried out, packaged up, and food purveyors buy it or cosmetic companies buy it. So many sake breweries have contracts with cosmetic companies because of all the amino acids. The sake byproducts go into lotions and face masks and stuff because it's really good for your skin.
right?
So what's that?
Soto does not have a nigori.
Not yet. We're working on it. We're working on a nigori. Yeah, I know, such a popular style, but yeah, I mean, just there's so many like good probiotics, like, you know, the koji, like how sake is one of the few. I don't want to say it's the only one because I don't know. I just know that it doesn't spike your blood sugar like, you know, some other alcoholic beverages. Again, I enjoy drinking everything, but I know sake is like your body metabolizes it very like consistently. It doesn't like spike your blood sugar and drop and all that stuff. So I know, again, how healthy do you want our booze to be, but it is a very good for your body, I think. Yeah. Beverage. Yes. All sake is sulfite free, tannin free, gluten free, vegan.
Organic, non-GMO.
I mean, yeah, even if they don't have the certification because it's so expensive to get it. I mean, Japan's so clean and so sustainable. Many of the breweries do operate that way. They just don't spend the money to get the, you know, the certification because it's very expensive. But I would say probably a lot of them. Yeah.
Cool. I think that's everything.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
Thank you so much. Arigatou gozaimasu.
So, those are, I know. Thank you guys. Oh.